4:33 a.m. The Persian Gulf, 57 nautical miles south of the Strait of Hormuz. The ship was making 17 knots. 44. The helmsman turned. Welcome to Navy Beacon, where we break down the operations that define sea power. Before we talk about what happened in those 2.6 seconds, we need to talk about naval mines, because mines are the weapon that every naval officer fears most and talks about least. They are cheap. The Iranian contact mine costs between $10,000 and $20,000 to produce. The ship it destroys costs between $2 billion and $13 billion, depending on the type. They are patient. A mine sits on the bottom or floats at depth for weeks or months waiting. It does not need a crew. It does not need communications. It does not need command authorization to engage. It waits, and when something matching its activation criteria passes within range, it detonates. They are invisible. A mine 2 meters underwater in the Persian Gulf's sediment-rich, acoustically complex environment is not easy to find. You need a dedicated mine countermeasures helicopter, a specially trained EOD dive team, or a hull-mounted sonar operating in a specific mode. And even then, detection rates in Gulf conditions fall well short of 100%. The U.S. Navy's mine countermeasures capability has been underfunded for decades. It is a capability that every strategic review identifies as a critical gap, and every budget cycle finds reasons to defer. That gap was about to become very real. The fleet formation had departed the Strait of Hormuz 7 hours earlier, inbound to a patrol station in the central Gulf. USS Farragut was the lead ship, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer running point for the column. Her hull-mounted AN/SQS-53 sonar in active search mode, which is the standard procedure for Persian Gulf transits in a suspected mine environment. Behind Farragut, 400 meters back, was USS Mahan, a second Arleigh Burke destroyer. Behind Mahan, 400 meters further, was USS Bunker Hill, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, the formation's senior ship and the commander's flagship. Behind the cruiser, at extended spacing, 2 military Sea-Lift command cargo vessels carrying pre-positioning equipment and supplies. The formation's speed was 17 knots. In mine-rich waters, doctrine calls for slowing to 7 knots and operating in dedicated mine avoidance mode. But the threat assessment for this sector of the Gulf had listed mine probability as low based on the most recent bottom survey, a survey conducted by a mine countermeasures helicopter 4 months prior. The minefield had been laid 18 days ago. The disconnect between the 4-month-old survey and the current reality was the fundamental intelligence failure that enabled everything that followed. The mine-laying operation had been planned and executed over an 8-day period beginning 26 days before the engagement. 2 vessels were used. Both were modified commercial dhows, 65-foot steel hull fishing boats that had been converted below the waterline to carry mines in concealed deployment channels running along the keel. From above the waterline, at any distance, they looked like every other dhow operating in the southern Gulf. Their AIS transponders were active with valid Omani fishing registrations. Their hulls showed no visible modifications. For 7 days before the actual mine laying, both vessels had operated in the area conducting what appeared to be normal fishing activity. They anchored in the same areas where the mines would be placed, establishing an anchoring pattern that local shipping would normalize as routine fishing behavior. On the 8th day, at 11:30 p.m., when maritime traffic in the area was at its minimum, both vessels deployed mines through their keel channels while anchored at their established positions. The mines were moored contact types, the most basic category of naval mine. Each mine was connected to a wire anchor that held it at a specified depth below the surface. The depth was calculated precisely, set to detonate when contacted by a vessel with a draft of 28 feet or greater. USS Farragut's draft, 31 feet. USS Mahan's draft, 31 feet. USS Bunker Hill's draft, 33 feet. The MSC cargo vessel's drafts, 36 and 38 feet. All 5 ships in the formation had drafts that would bring their keels within contact range of the mines. The 2 mine-laying dhows had placed 11 mines over a 3.2 nautical mile stretch of the formation's established transit road. The geometry was deliberate. The mines were not placed randomly, but in a pattern designed around 2 tactical principles. First principle: place the first mine discovery contact at a range that forces an emergency turn. Then place additional mines in the areas the turn will move the ship toward. A ship detecting a mine at 40 meters and turning hard to starboard will swing its bow right and expose its port beam, so there should be a mine to port. Second principle. Spread the field longitudinally along the route so that ships following behind the lead vessel will encounter mines even after the lead ship has maneuvered through the initial contact zone. The mine pattern reflected knowledge of U.S. Navy emergency maneuvering doctrine. At 4:33 and 1 second a.m., sonar technician 2nd Class Maria Reyes, on her 4th consecutive hour of watch, classified the first contact. Contact, bottom object, bearing 009, range 44 meters, evaluate possible mine. The helmsman had the turn-in before she finished the sentence. The mine passed along USS Farragut's port side at a clearance the post-incident laser survey measured at 6 meters. 6 meters of water between a contact mine's pressure horns and a destroyer's steel hull. The mine did not detonate, but the ship was still moving. Even as the helm went hard over, USS Farragut's momentum was carrying her forward through a field that the crew did not know contained 10 more mines. At 4:33:47 a.m., 46 seconds after the first contact, sonar technician Reyes classified a second mine, 230 meters ahead on the original course. Second contact, possible mine, bearing 002, range 230. She had been on watch for 4 hours and 11 minutes. She was tired. She had been monitoring the same acoustic environment for that entire period, processing dozens of contacts per hour, classifying each one as biologics, bottom return, turbulence, or trackable contact. She had caught both mines. The system had worked because she had worked. Third contact, 190 meters to port, placed precisely where the emergency starboard turn would have sent the ship if the first mine had been detected slightly later and the turn had been harder. Fourth contact, directly astern between Farragut and USS Mahan. The formation had sailed into a deliberate minefield. The all-stop order went out on the tactical circuit at 4:33:52 a.m. USS Mahan's officer of the deck applied full astern power. The ship was making 17 knots. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer at full emergency astern decelerates at a rate that still covers significant distance before stopping. In the time between the all-stop order and the ship reaching full stop, Mahan traveled nearly 300 meters. During those 300 meters, her sonar detected a mine 290 meters ahead. She had already begun her turn. The mine passed her bow at 11 meters. USS Bunker Hill received the circuit order and began her deceleration. She was the slowest to stop of the 3 warships. Her larger displacement meant greater momentum. The formation commander, Rear Admiral David Hayes, was on the bridge within 90 seconds. The MSC vessels, trailing at extended spacing and moving more slowly than the warships, received the circuit order and went to all stop without incident. They were outside the apparent minefield boundary. At 4:35 and 1 second a.m., all 5 ships were stationary. The formation had entered a minefield at 17 knots and stopped inside it. 3 warships were scattered across an unknown area of mined water. The extent of the field was unknown. The number of mines was unknown. The formation's mine countermeasures capability. The MH-53E Sea Dragon helicopter assigned to the mine countermeasures group was aboard USS Incheon, currently operating 170 nautical miles southeast. Flight time for the MH-53E, 1 hour and 42 minutes. 102 minutes. At 4:36 a.m., the flash message reached 5th Fleet. Minefield detected. Column stopped in suspect field. Extent unknown. Multiple contacts. MCM required immediately. The message landed on the duty officer's screen and triggered a cascade that included waking the fleet commander, activating the mine countermeasures emergency response protocol, scrambling the MH-53E, and requesting immediate P-8 Poseidon coverage over the area. Commander Thomas Reeves, commanding officer of USS Farragut, had been in CIC since the first mine contact. He was the on-scene commander, the senior officer on the ground making tactical decisions in real time. He had no mine countermeasures helicopter. He had no EOD teams in the water yet. It would take time to prepare the teams and equipment. He had the ship's wire sweep gear, which was a blunt force clearance tool designed for a different era of mine warfare, not optimized for the moored contact mines that were almost certainly in the water around him. He had one tool that no doctrine prescribed, but that the situation demanded: 5 ships' sonars, all active, all pointed in different directions. Reeves requested that every ship in the formation switch to active sonar at maximum power, and begin transmitting their contact data to the tactical network. The objective was to build a cooperative sonar picture of the minefield, using 5 different sensor platforms at 5 different positions to create overlapping coverage of the surrounding water. The AN/SQS-53 sonar on each ship was not designed for cooperative mine mapping. It was a submarine detection sonar, optimized for acoustic signatures very different from a moored contact mine's steel body. But a steel object anchored in 30 meters of Gulf water produces a distinctive bottom bounce acoustic return that an experienced sonar technician can classify. Over the next 40 minutes, as the 5 ships' sonar crews worked their contacts and fed data to the tactical picture, the cooperative picture assembled. 22 mine contacts within a 3 nautical mile radius of the formation's stopped position. 22 mines. The formation had entered a 22-mine field at 17 knots. At 4:36 a.m., the same moment Farragut's flash went out, the P-8 Poseidon that had been covering the area south of the strait was diverted and began transiting toward the formation at maximum speed. The P-8's sensor suite included a forward-looking infrared camera, calibrated to detect temperature differentials on surface vessels, a capability useful for detecting recently active vessels in the cool pre-dawn Gulf air. The P-8 arrived over the area at 4:49 a.m., 13 minutes after the flash. Its FLIR camera immediately began scanning the surrounding water space. The mine-laying dhows had finished their work 18 days ago, but the 2 vessels that had conducted the laying operation had returned to the area 3 days prior, possibly to assess the condition of the moorings, or as part of a pattern of activity designed to keep the vessels looking like ordinary fishing boats operating in the area. One dhow was anchored 4.1 nautical miles north of the minefield. Its FLIR signature was unremarkable, a cold hull, cold deck, but its engine spaces showed elevated temperature consistent with a diesel engine that had been running within the previous 2 hours. Anchored fishing boats in the pre-dawn hours generally do not run their engines. They anchor and sleep. The P-8 operator logged it as a potential mine-laying vessel and flagged it to 5th Fleet Intelligence. The second dhow was underway, heading northeast at 9 knots. The P-8's FLIR showed residual heat signatures on its rear deck. The keel deployment rails were warm, consistent with a vessel that had recently been conducting operations that required the deck equipment to run. Both contacts were assessed as probable mine-laying vessels. 5th Fleet's strike authorization request went out at 4:51 a.m. Authorization returned at 5:03 a.m., 12 minutes. In those 12 minutes, the anchored dhow had remained stationary. The underway dhow had covered 1.8 nautical miles northeast and was now 9.5 minutes from Iranian territorial waters. Both vessels were still in international waters. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets, Cobra 31 and Cobra 32, had been scrambled from USS Theodore Roosevelt at 4:53 a.m., 2 minutes after the strike request went up, because the Roosevelt's operations officer had assessed that authorization was likely and had moved the aircraft to Alert 1 status in advance. Alert 1. Engines running. Pilots in cockpits. Launch in under 60 seconds from order. The fighters launched at 4:53 a.m. and arrived over the area at 5:01 a.m., 10 minutes before authorization. They held at altitude, FLIR cameras locked on both contacts, transmitting the feed to 5th Fleet. When authorization came at 5:03 a.m., both pilots were already in attack parameters. Cobra 31 engaged the anchored dhow first. A single GBU 38 500-pound JDAM GPS guided to the vessel's center of mass as calculated from the FLIR track. The bomb struck amidships. The detonation was direct. A 500-pound bomb hitting a wooden and fiberglass vessel is not a question of penetration and delayed fuse. The vessel came apart and sank within 4 minutes. Cobra 32's target, the underway dhow, had increased speed to 13 knots when the crew saw the explosion on the anchored vessel. They were running for the territorial water boundary, 5 minutes away. Cobra 32 fired an AGM-65 Maverick from 2 miles standoff. The Maverick's infrared seeker locked the dhow's engine heat. Direct hit. The vessel stopped, caught fire, and sank within 90 seconds. Both mine-laying vessels were destroyed at 5:11 a.m. The mission: finding and killing the instruments that had deployed 22 mines in a U.S. fleet transit route, completed in 8 minutes of weapons employment. The MH-53E Sea Dragon arrived at 6:15 a.m. Mine clearance operations commenced immediately. The helicopter's sweep gear, a combination of wire sweeps and influence sweep systems, began working through the field. 8 mines were neutralized by sweep gear in the first 2 hours. 14 required EOD teams, divers from USS Cole and USS Farragut working in 30 meters of Gulf water, locating each mine by hand, attaching explosive charges, and surfacing before detonation. Controlled detonations of the contact mine sent water columns 40 meters into the morning sky, visible from the formation and audible from the bridge of every ship. The last mine was rendered safe at 10:41 a.m. The fleet formation transited the cleared channel at 11 a.m., 6 hours and 27 minutes behind schedule. The after-action review produced findings that were discussed at the highest levels of 5th Fleet Command. Finding 1. The intelligence gap was catastrophic in its simplicity. The mine threat probability assessment for the sector was based on a bottom survey 4 months old. The mines had been laid 18 days before the engagement. There was no mechanism for the threat assessment to automatically flag the gap between survey age and current conditions in a dynamic threat environment. The review mandated a maximum 30-day age limit for mine threat assessments in areas where Iranian mine-laying activity was assessed as possible. Finding 2. The mine pattern had been engineered around U.S. emergency maneuver doctrine. The placement of a second mine in the sector, a standard emergency starboard turn would send the ship toward, was not coincidence. It reflected knowledge of how U.S. surface ships respond to a mine contact. Where that knowledge came from required a counterintelligence assessment that produced classified findings. Finding 3. Sonar technician Reeves. Her contact classification at 44 meters, after 4 hours and 11 minutes of continuous watch, was assessed as the single most consequential individual action of the engagement. The review board noted that a trained and alert sonar operator, in the right place at the right time, had prevented a minefield entry from becoming a mine strike. Her name was submitted for commendation by Commander Reeves the day the review was completed. Finding 4. The cooperative sonar technique improvised by Commander Reeves was formalized as a standing procedure for multi-ship formations stopped in suspected minefields. It was incorporated into surface warfare tactical doctrine within 45 days. Finding 5. MCM coverage gap. 102 minutes of 5 ships stationary in a minefield, waiting for a mine countermeasures helicopter that was 170 miles away, was documented as an unacceptable vulnerability. The recommendation: any fleet formation transiting Gulf waters where mine probability was assessed above negligible should have MCM helicopter capability within 30 nautical miles at all times. Implementing that recommendation required additional MCM helicopter platforms, additional crew, and additional logistic support for those platforms. The resources were in the FY 2026 budget request. The question a senator asked in the classified briefing: how long until that capability is funded and deployed? The answer was 18 months. The senator noted that the mines that stopped a U.S. fleet column for 6 hours had cost the IRGC approximately $220,000. The 18-month capability gap had cost the U.S. Navy 6 hours of operational time, the destruction of 2 strike aircraft's ordnance loads, and the mobilization of an entire MCM group on emergency tasking. The math of asymmetric warfare, rendered in numbers on a committee briefing slide. The Gulf was quiet for 2 weeks after the engagement. Then it was not. Stay vigilant, stay informed. This is Navy Beacon, and we'll see you in the next one.